We're at the Air Force Academy in Colorado Springs, taking a tour of their facilities and then having an interview with head coach Sam Barber. So right now we're in the team room. Listing of their cadet All-Americans. Listing of their national qualifiers. Their top team performers and head coaches. NCAA All-Americans. The Air Force Academy is not only a training facility for the Air Force Academy students, it is also a D1 competing wrestling on the national level. The assistant coaches office, Coach Barber's office, and his team lounge in place where they review films and go over strategy, and also talk about what's going on for their schedule and practices. This is Tom Blair with Inside Colorado Wrestling. We're here in the coach's office of Coach Sam Barber, the Air Force Academy head wrestling coach. Good afternoon, Sam. How's it going?
Great, Tom. How are you doing? Thanks for being here.
Let's just start off with what is your coaching background and what brought you to Air Force Academy?
Okay. Yeah, my background is, I was born and raised in Western New York, followed my high school coach's footsteps to a small private school in Northeast Iowa, Upper Iowa University, where I competed there as a wrestler. Stayed on and coached there as an assistant coach, and did a short stint as a head coach there as well. From there, I went to Minnesota State Mankato, finished up did my grad degree, did a grad assistantship there with Jim Makovsky. From there, I went on to Augsburg College, where I was there for about 10 years. Most of that as an assistant coach, and the final couple of years as a head coach. And we had a pretty prominent Division III small college wrestling program that wrestled pretty competitively against some pretty big schools as well. From there, I left Augsburg College and came to Colorado and worked for USA Wrestling as the director of the coaches education program. And had a previous existing relationship with Joel Sherritt. Started just coming up here, kind of volunteering my time at the prep school. Moved into the volunteer assistant, went from the volunteer assistant to the second assistant, and then became the head coach of this program probably 5 years ago.
So you just didn't jump into the head coaching position, you worked your way up the ladder here at Air Force.
Yeah, from the volunteer assistant. Yeah, so volunteer to second to head coach. And a lot of that's just circumstances. Mike McCarthy was a longtime volunteer assistant wrestling coach and just decided not to do that anymore. And then they transitioned some of the military positions into civilian positions, and it was a great opportunity for me to leave USA Wrestling and come here full time. And then Joel Sherritt decided to take the head coaching job at the Naval Academy and opened up another opportunity for me to continue to stay and be part of this program.
So the head coach here left and went over to the Naval Academy. Have you had a chance to go against him?
Yeah, we see each other annually 2 to 3 times a year. Not directly in dual meets, but they go to Vegas, we go to Vegas. They go to Scuffle, we go to Scuffle, and then we have this thing called the All Academy Championships, where there's 8 tournaments in the country, eight institutions in the country that are commissioning sources.
Right.
And Army, Navy, Air Force, Citadel, VMI are Division I, Merchant Marine Academy, Coast Guard Academy, and Norwich are Division III. So we're excited. We're going to actually host that competition on the 25th of January this year in Colorado Springs. So
last year was at Norwich.
Last year was at Norwich, yeah, for their 200th anniversary.
Yeah, I know things like that because I'm from Vermont, so I follow Norwich and also Castleton.
Yeah.
Because I wrestled against Coach Scott Legacy there. At Castleton. Where was your wrestling credentials yourself in high school and college?
Yeah, so as a wrestler, I just it's always been, I've been passionate about it. I've worked hard, but that part of it, I just don't have a lot of credentials. It was New York was a one-class state when I was there, so I never was a state champion or anything in New York, and then I went to Division III and I qualified for the NCAAs a couple times, but never reached my goal of being a national champion or an All-American. So coaching, I think is just something that's been seems like I've just had a little bit better success as a coach, and I think a big part of that too is when I was at Upper Iowa as a sophomore, wrestling there. Jay Robinson intensive camps traveled through there. They were there for the 10-day camp, and I met Jay Robinson at that time, and I was able to be part of that for 19 years. So I worked for Jay, and I learned a lot about. I learned a lot of my coaching philosophy comes from a few different places. Mike McCready, who was my head wrestling coach at Upper Iowa, an incredible influence on me. My high school coach at Joe Smith. And then Jay Robinson, who I spent an immense amount of time around and a bunch of respect. And through that, other relationships, with Marty Morgan and Joe Russell and Mark Schwab, and just all the great wrestling minds that were at the University of Minnesota. And I was really fortunate to be working those camps and around those people when Minnesota was making their run, and won their 3 national titles. So as a competitor, I think for me that's been a good thing as a coach, because I don't try and teach guys how I wrestle. I've had to learn, the sport from the grassroots up, and I can feel like I have a good depth of knowledge, in all areas, and it's not necessarily how I did.
Some of the best coaches at the high school or in the college level are coaches that weren't top level wrestlers themselves, so they were able to break down the moves better and be more of a student of the wrestling itself.
Yeah, again, Jay Robinson camps was a huge part of that. I mean, you showed up to work, and the thing said, hey, you're going to show sit out, turn in, switch over, stand up, hip heist. And it didn't matter if you did those things or not. You had to learn to teach them. So through 10 weeks of summer, 19 years of doing that, and there's other incredibly, world-class conditions. So if you didn't know that area very well, maybe Coach Dan Taylor from Idaho did, and you got to watch him teach it, and then you learn how to teach it. So that part of it, probably has been the most valuable thing that I got to experience, especially as a young coach, was working those camps. And then after that, I was able to get involved with Minnesota Storm and a few different other areas and USA Wrestling. And it's just I've been really, really fortunate to be around some of the best minds in the sport of wrestling, and nothing to my merit at all. Just very fortunate, very blessed, very very lucky to be around the people I've been exposed to.
Okay, let's move on to or transition into the your finish from the 2018-2019 season. How did the team do as a whole?
Yeah, I think it's obviously there were some high points. I mean, we finished I think 8-6. We had we beat Fresno State, who spent time in the top 25. We beat Utah Valley, who spent time in the top 25. We beat some other good teams in Northern Colorado and Cal Poly. So we feel pretty good about our dual meet season. I think we have a pretty balanced team. Individually in tournaments, we didn't perform the way we wanted to perform. So I think if you look at the Scuffle, you look at Vegas, you look at the Big 12s, we didn't perform the way we wanted to perform. So I think that part of it, we feel there's definitely some high high points and some things to take away, and we wrestled well in dual meets, and we had North Dakota State on the ropes, and we let that one slip away from us. So we competed well against Oklahoma State in that dual meet, and I think that was the takeaway. Is that last year we had a pretty balanced team, and for whatever reason we were able to get going, and we had good momentum, and we could compete well in dual meets. But when it came to individual tournaments, we definitely don't feel like we met our potential. So looking to be able to be a little bit more consistent in our performance.
Now, how did you finish at the NCAAs? Did you have All-American or?
No, Anthony McLaughlin qualified for the NCAAs, and we felt like he wrestled pretty well there. He lost his first match to Virginia, and then he came back and he had a win against the host school, Pittsburgh, and then he dropped his last match where he's 1-2. But I think to win a match in that tournament's a big deal, and he was competitive in all three matches. And if I just felt like if he could have got on a roll, and maybe got into that evening session on Friday night, it would have carried him through. And he's a pretty special case. Anthony had some challenges with his hips, and we were limited in how we could train him. We had to train him in a different way, but he had some good wins throughout the year too, and he beat UNC, Northern Colorado kid 2 times, and he had a nice win in the Big 12 tournament against the Wyoming 197-pounder. So he was a guy that never placed in the state tournament. And I think that part of it, if you look at the development we're doing for our guys, is we're not getting necessarily the number 1 recruit in the country, but we're beating some of the best guys in the country. So, I think the Northern Colorado kid won Fargo. You got a guy like Anthony McLaughlin who didn't place in the state tournament, and he's beating a Fargo champion. So I think that shows that, if guys buy into our system, they do the work. We saw you got a few guys in here working out on a Saturday that, we can compete and beat some of the best guys in the country.
And it's a different situation here because they're always training on other things besides wrestling, so they have to find their balance with the program.
Yeah, I think that part of it is a benefit for us, and that it really allows our guys, and that this place demands you to have great time management. It kind of forces you to focus on the right things. We talk about living a championship lifestyle here a lot, and our guys live clean lives. They study hard, they work hard in their leadership responsibilities, and they show up every day for practice, and they give us 100% there too. So that part of it, I think the requirements of the Air Force Academy, it's not restrictive here, but it is very structured, and that structure really is, it sets you up to live a championship lifestyle. You do the right things because this lifestyle demands it, and because of that, we perform at a pretty high level, I think.
What do you have for returning wrestlers from last year's squad?
Yeah, returning wrestlers, Sydney Flores will be coming back at 125, and the exciting thing about our team is that we have competition in every weight class this year. So even when we have returning starters coming back, and we're probably not going to mention every single guy on the team, but even when we have returning starters coming back, we have somebody right behind that guy nipping on his heels. So that part of it is going to, I think competition in your program is probably the best thing you could create to elevate your program and jump levels. But that being said, Sydney Flores, he spent some time national ranked. He was in the coaches ranking. He was in the RPI. He was the guy we felt, should have been at the NCAA tournament.
Right.
And he's a guy that loves wrestling. So Sydney's back at 25. At 141, Garrett O'Shea's back. Garrett O'Shea placed 7th in the Big 12s. Again, he was a guy that was national ranked at RPI. I think he was, I don't know, I'd be making up the number, but somewhere in the round, 6-2 in dual meets for us. Just a really constant performer when it came to dual meets. And senior in our program, a leader. Alec Opsol's back again at 149. I think he's been a 2-year starter for us. 65, Jacoby Ward's back. He ended up doing a nice job for us, filling in there at the end of the year, and won a few matches at Big 12s. It was one match around from placing there as well. So Randy Manyweather's back at 174. Incredibly talented athlete, a guy that's just got to figure out, his goal is to be the starter, his goal is to be at the NCAA tournament. Jake Thompson, we saw in the weight room, is back at 184 for us.
All right.
Kane Hutchinson, extremely promising young heavyweight for us back.
I know it's hard on the recruiting side of it a lot of times because the Air Force Academy has such a higher standard than some of the other colleges that you have to go compete against. So what does your incoming class look like?
Our incoming class is pretty good. This is, the fourth out of 5 years we've been ranked nationally in the top 25. So this class is coming in. It was ranked in the fall by the Open Mat, I think 23rd, and it's a really good class. And some things, and we won't be able to talk about all those guys today because they look at our prep school guys. We have 7 guys at our prep school, and we have some real high performing guys down there that were part of that ranking. But with that, we have some guys that came out of the prep school that we think are really going to help us this year. We have Cody Fippen, who's a multiple-time, Fargo All-American. We got it's just a really good class. So Dylan Martinez, who's from Grand Junction, he's a Colorado kid who we think's a good kid. Colin Pointer, who was he wrestled for Leroy Vega at Portage, so he's really, really solid. Garrett Neal's a Pine Creek kid that won a state title as a sophomore. Cole Forrester, the Pennsylvania young man you just met in there. So, and then we got another pretty talented Arizona kid that if he makes the commitment, I think he could be good. Jacob Garcia, and they join a pretty good group of direct guys that includes Justin Pacheco from Pomona and Anthony Hinson from Pennsylvania. I'm surely gonna forget somebody as I'm going through this, but 2 boys from Georgia, and Colton Woods and Nick Krug, and so we feel pretty good about the freshman class.
Now, with the kids coming in, what distinguishes between them coming in at the prep level or coming straight in to the academy?
That there's not an easy answer to that because we have this composite score that we kind of measure you as a whole person that includes academics, athletics, your commitment to service, physical fitness scores, your medical background, and all that stuff. So out of that composite score, you're going to get a certain number, and based on that number, there's a line in the sand that says, hey, this young man for this, for various reasons, might be a better fit at our prep school. So nobody's deficient. It's just we look at the prep school is like, hey, this is a year for growth, and so in some area of their life, the Air Force Academy thinks it'd be better for them to spend a year at our prep school and developmentally, again.
So basically, if they're in the prep school, it's like a redshirt year.
We can't say that at all.
Okay.
Yeah, we can't say that at all. So it's a developmental year for them to get prepared to ascend to the Air Force Academy. While they're down there, they have a full-time coach, and Tim Eldry does a great job. They wrestle about a 12-date schedule while they're down there, and then they go to the NCO, the National Collegiate Open, for culminating, basically a national tournament, like a national championship at the end. And if they're doing well enough academically, they have an opportunity to go to UWW Juniors as well in Vegas. So it's a pretty good situation. Again, the primary focus is to get them prepared to come to the Air Force Academy academically and militarily, but it's a great opportunity for them to grow and mature as a Division I college wrestler as well. And then they get to be part of our RTC, which we'll talk about later too.
I know it's hard with some kids, maturity-wise, being 17 or 18-year-olds, even going to a regular college. Sometimes they're not even prepared at that time. So I can understand having them have an extra year being prepared at the prep school side. What are your season goals and expectations for the team?
Our season goal really, an expectation for the team is to elevate our program and our performance, So I think that part of it, and it's and you would think that, if we were going to have that goal, that this would be the year that we'd have 10 starters back, 4 of them that have been at the national tournament or close to it, but it's going to be the exact opposite. We're going to be extremely young this year, extremely young. But that being said, we really think that we have 10 guys that can medal at the Big 12s, and out of that, we think we should have a minimum of 6 guys representing the program at the NCAA tournament. So that we've had 4 recruiting classes ranked in the top 25. We're kind of at a culminating point of that. So I don't think, even though some of these guys haven't started, some of these guys are young. We just think that they're the right type of guys to step in and really raise the bar here for Air Force wrestling.
This coming year, a lot of wrestlers from different colleges are taking a Olympic redshirt year, so that may affect who you see at the regional tournament or championship, and also at the national tournament. So that could play in a lot of different schools' favors this year, where they can get higher points on the podium.
Yeah, I'm not so sure how much it'll impact things. I think if you look across the NCAA, I think there's a ton of parity right now. That there's great athletes from every school. I think when you take Yanni out, or if you take Dayton Fix, guys that are already at that level a little bit, obviously I think that's going to open the door for somebody to have an opportunity to win an NCAA title that may not if those guys were in the bracket. But I'm not so sure that number 2, 3, 4, and 5. From the returning place finishers last year, are going to be taking Olympic red shirts. Unless there's an instance where it's beneficial to their team. And I think you're going to see a situation at Fresno where they're going to have a guy take an Olympic red shirt, and a little bit less to do with that young man that's taken an Olympic red shirt, a little bit more with an opportunity to fit a guy into their lineup that wouldn't fit normally.
Right, because I've heard rumors and I've heard coaches say who on the major Division I teams like Cornell, Penn State, and Virginia Tech, some of their top guys are taking red shirts.
Yeah, and again, I think if you look at those guys, the guys you're talking about are guys that won national titles. They're the returning national champions. So I think that opens the door for somebody else to win a national title. I'm not so sure that, again, it's going to – I just don't think you're going to see, 8, 7, 6 up to the top, have that many guys take Olympic red shirts and open the door that much. I think it's really going to impact the top 3 and maybe opportunity for a guy to get in at 7th and 8th.
Basically, it would be the top tier guys.
Yeah, I think so.
Moving on down, the Air Force Academy here is also a RTC, which is a regional training center. Tell me a little about that.
Well, we think we got one of the best regional training centers in the country, and I think if you look at our geography and where we're at, and our access to the Olympic Training Center, that's just a huge benefit for us. So our RTC, and we utilize it a ton. It opens the door for our program, for our guys, our 46 guys on our team to train in it. It opens the door for the United States Air Force Prep School to train here. Any of the Colorado guys, any high school Colorado guys within 250 miles, and it is good or better than anybody that high school wrestling in Colorado is really on the rise. So we have some of those really talented athletes and really good clubs that are coming to be part of it. And then the Olympic Training Center, just the EAP program, having guys like Brooks, Aaron Brooks in our program, or the Tags, coming up here, training, Saunders and Morin now. So the new guys are in that program, to include Jaden and Cox occasionally too. So, and then with that, we also host the All Air Force team. So that's another 20 airman athletes that are coming back here for 6 weeks. So if you came up here on the right day, you might see 80 guys in our RTC. And then and you talked to Dax, Coach Dax today, and they've came up too, so include Pueblo. So it's and the other part that's we've even had some a small bit of interaction with is the Army World Class Athlete Program down in Fort Carson. So if you take a look at our 250-mile radius and what's inside it, with the Olympic Training Center, the United States Air Force Prep School, local high schools, the World Class Athlete Program at Fort Carson, and then our All Air Force team, that's 5 pretty incredible groups of people that you can draw from to put together a great training environment. And on top of that, that's not even talking about the coaches of Kevin Jackson, Bill Dadak, Tim Elger, Dwayne Goldman, Coach Dax, Joe Russell, Gary Mayab, Matt Lindland. There's just a lot of great wrestling people here in Colorado Springs area.
One question I have is, why would you want to be a regional training center so close to the Olympic Training Center?
Because I think
because I understand what you just said, but to bring it further.
The Olympic Training Center is really, really good when there's camps going on, and our guys go down and utilize that resource when there's camps going on. But when there's not camps going on, it's great that the Olympic Training Center has us. So it's a win-win. I think it's like for us, we can go down to the Olympic Training Center when the World Team's there. The next 2 weeks is going to be a World Team training camp, and we'll have guys down there accessing, that training next to Jordan Burroughs and Cal Dake now, and all those guys as they prepare to go to Kazakhstan, right? So we have 4 athletes now in the World Class Athlete Program with Alex Mossing, Christian Hunt, Brandon Moore, and Senior Airman Dante Cooper. So we have, and then we just hired, there'll be a press release next week on Chandler Rogers is going to be part of our program as a director of ops, and he'll also be training in our RTCs. So just the partnership, the ability to go back and forth. Some days we go down there, some days they come up here, and I think with that flexibility to do both, I think that's why it's great to have both of those opportunities.
Okay. Another question is, with the rise of the women wrestling, not only in the state of Colorado, but throughout the country, is stepping up on the D2 level and D1 level. You feel that Air Force Academy may step into that program also?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, and quite honestly, I scheduled a meeting with our athletic department, our athletic director, Mr. Pine, and we'll probably be back with an official stance on where we are with that. So there's some variables we got to look at. I can tell you 100% we're behind women's wrestling here at the United States Air Force Academy, but we're going to have to take a look and see how that fits us as an institution, how that fits our business model as a Division I athletic program, and quite honestly, that's not going to be my decision.
Speaking of the RTC, I understand there was a big debate a couple weekends ago at the National Coaches Conference down in Florida.
Yeah.
Did you attend that conference, and what did you hear about the?
I think there's just there's just a debate about RTCs and what if they're doing what they were intended to do, and then with that, if people are playing within the rules or the guidelines that are set. So I think that's the biggest. The two biggest topics are, number one, are like, are RTCs being utilized for what they're being utilized, and I think, and the second one is that they're like, are RTCs, have they become a pathway to circumvent NCAA rules, and are people doing stuff within RTCs that is unethical and illegal? So I think that's the main part of the conversation. I think they're
understandably
ongoing. So
understanding that the NCAA doesn't have the hands on it. It is a program put out by USA Wrestling. I heard today from Coach Dax that some changes are going to be coming down the pipeline. Have you heard about any of the changes?
I think there's going to be some changes as well. I mean, I sat on the board of directors for USA Wrestling, so I spent the last 2 days in that meeting too. And obviously, RTCs are very important to USA Wrestling. So I think there's somewhat of a boiling point right now at RTCs, and I think we got to get the right people in the room, and we got to make a rational decision about what's best for our sport. Right now, I think we're going to make an emotional decision, a subjective decision, and I'd like us, to make a decision again that looks at the future of our sport and that's objective and based on data.
Right. I mean, the programs I've seen and the level of our competition in the United States has improved on the world standards. So I think our RTCs is a good program. Like I said, some more regulations may need to be involved.
Yeah. I'm on record as being an advocate for RTCs, and I'm one of the few probably that says that I think they've been great. And I think they've been great for our grassroots. I think they've been great for, like a local kid here in Colorado Springs that can come up here and get coached by our coaching staff or Kevin Jackson. That's a life-changing experience.
Right.
That's an incredible experience. The fact that we can open our door to Sarah Hildebrandt, to women's wrestling. If you look at what's going on at University of Iowa, without RTCs, that doesn't happen. So if you talk about the growth and development of women wrestling, RTCs are a huge part of that. Social and economic, the underprivileged kids, RTCs are a great opportunity for those people to get around the right type of people that are going to change their lives. So it's made a huge difference in our program. As a mid-major, a smaller program, my ability to get out and hustle and do the work is really going to directly impact the growth of our program. That's a good thing for the sport of wrestling. So I'm 100% behind them. I think people want to set people that are going to cheat are going to cheat, and it's like that's the bottom line. I think people are going to think that if we create these rules, even if it's NCAA, and it's been going on forever, is that if people want to circumvent the rules, or people want to find a way to get an advantage that is maybe unfair, that's still going to happen. So I think by having a knee-jerk reaction of getting rid of RTCs,
I mean, people
we won't get them back if we lose them.
people push the envelopes. They push the gray area.
Yeah.
Not only in the sport of wrestling, but I mean elsewhere. So I can understand where that's coming from.
Yeah. And again, nothing changes there, right? So I think instead of limiting opportunities for programs to grow, for people, for underprivileged groups, for the growth of women's wrestling, for the growth of small programs, I think less, these types of opportunities that the RTCs provide us to grow our programs and to get out and put in some extra work and kind of reap the benefits of that extra work. If you're willing to do it, it's good. If we bring this thing in, I just really feel like that we'll lose a lot with it, and I don't think we'll get that back for a long time.
Okay, let's step back to the Air Force Academy itself. You've had some coaching changes this coming season.
Yeah.
Let's hear what the coaching changes are.
Yeah, so, Bart Horton, our longtime, head assistant in the wrestling program, he's going to teach combatives here. He's going to be a physical education instructor at the Air Force Academy full time. And with that opened up an opportunity for us to add somebody to our staff. And, we just can't be, you can't tell you how excited we are to have Joe Johnston, come be part of our program. And Joe comes to us. He's a University of Iowa graduate, 2-time All-American, NCAA runner-up, scholar athlete. From there, he coached at Cornell College and Division III for a couple of years, where that's where I met him. And then he's been at University of Missouri for the last 10 years. I think 36 All-Americans, 10 years straight of conference titles and top 10 finishes in the NCAA. So just his passion and what he brings to our program, it really balances out our coaching staff. We have world-class coaches in Dustin Kilgore, who's an NCAA national champion, third in the Olympic trials, 3-time All-American for Kent State. He's our volunteer head RTC coach. He brings a lot of value to our program, and he plays his role very well. Chris Heilman's our recruiting coordinator. We've already talked about 4 out of 5 recruiting classes ranked in the top 25 in the country. The guy is unbelievably organized. So logistically and administratively, he's super strong, and then he's equally as good in the wrestling room. So you take Dustin, Chris, and Joe, plus myself, and I think we just got a really well-balanced coaching staff that kind of we're going to be able to really support our cadet athletes and help them grow and get to that next level because of the combination of all of our strengths.
Yeah.
And with that, we talked about Chandler Rogers, who's going to be joining our program too as our director of ops. So that gives us five staff members in our program, and you start looking a lot less like a mid-major and a little bit more like a Power 5 Big 12 team with that type of coaching staff.
Well, good luck in your season. We appreciate what you do for the Air Force Academy and what the Air Force Academy does for the United States and for the wrestlers on the team. This is Tom Blair with Inside Colorado, speaking with head coach Sam Barber.
Thanks, Tom.
Walking into the Air Force Academy practice room. This facility was assembled about 5 years ago. Has 4 wrestling mats. One of the largest facilities in the state, if not the largest. Even though it's a Saturday afternoon, you still have guys in here working out, preparing themselves for the upcoming season.